We have breaking news just into CNN. Several people have been shot, including a National Guardsman just a few blocks from the White House. D.C. Metro Police said that they are on the scene. They're asking folks in the area to avoid going there. We're now joined by CNN senior law enforcement analyst Andrew McCabe, a former FBI deputy director. Andy, we are just learning from our producer that the scene has been secured. This is 17th and I, 1 block from the White House. There is a suspect currently in custody. Obviously, we have very limited details, just that several people were hurt. At least one member of the U.S. National Guard has been shot. Can you give us a sense of how an investigation like this begins, essentially? We have a suspect in custody, but now is when some of the real work begins.
Yeah, absolutely. So especially if we go back maybe half an hour or so before we learn this, just knowing there's been a shooting in that area, as Chief pointed out, you've got so many different agencies that are overlapping each other in this space. DC Metro PD clearly in the lead here. This is their turf, but you're in between the White House, where you have Secret Service, you've got Park Police. They have locations that they're responsible for all over the city. You've got the other federal agencies like the FBI. So there's the capability of a massive response. And usually I've seen it in responding to many situations in DC. You get an over response. People, officers on the street self-deploy to the area around the spot because they want to be helpful and they want to be able to kind of see what they can, see what they can accomplish. And that's not that can be challenging with traffic and getting, if you have medevac issues, it's tough to get ambulances in and out of there. But for this, where you're looking for a subject, the more law enforcement, eyeballs that you can put on that problem, the better off you are. So this is also an area where there is an extraordinarily high degree of video capture. Most of that is private businesses, residences, things like that will have street-facing video capture. And so one of the first things you'll see law enforcement do is immediately start hitting the businesses in that area, that 17th and I intersection, to try to see if they can get video of the suspect. That can lead to a description and can put you in the position that we appear to be in now. We don't know if it's video that led them to this person, or maybe eyewitnesses, people on the scene who may have seen things and been able to provide information. But it's great news that they have someone in custody they think is responsible. That will certainly tone down what could have been a very problematic manhunt in the nation's capital on the day before Thanksgiving. I should also say it's a tough time actually to be in the city because so many folks are trying to leave early to get home to Maryland, to Northern Virginia, and other nearby places where government workers and people who work in DC typically reside. So around this time of day, 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're going to see a massive traffic jams just normally because it's the day before the holidays. All that could really complicate the investigative efforts here.
And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem now posting that 2 National Guardsmen were shot as part of this, saying, please join me in praying for the 2 National Guardsmen who were just shot moments ago in Washington, D.C. The Department of Homeland Security is working with local law enforcement to gather more information. Again, we just saw that from a post from the Homeland Security Secretary. But Andy McCabe, my question for you is, look, National Guard was deployed here to Washington, D.C. as part of the president's push here, but also why, can you just talk a little bit about the type of personnel that would typically be outside the White House in a spot like this? Again, a block from the White House, but in that area on a day like this, you have National Guardsmen, but obviously you would have police officers. Just what would the scene typically be like?
Omar, typically it's a super crowded area of the city. You've got to the south and east just a little bit, you have the whole White House compound, right? Where you have the White House itself, the East Wing, the West Wing, the mansion. You've got the old executive office building next door. It's the the Treasury on the other side. You've got the Ellipse, Lafayette Square, all all these kind of square block areas that are part of the White House. All of that is patrolled by the Secret Service Uniform Division. So you've got Secret Service marked vehicles, uniform wearing, gun carrying agents, really saturating that area, especially any places that might give someone access to the White House compound. Now, in addition to that, if you go north of the 17 and I corridor, you cross K Street, now you're into really like the commercial center of DC. All of the law firms, the accounting firms, the lobbying firms, major corporate offices are all right in there on that like K Street corridor, L Street, all those areas going up Constitution Avenue into the more northern part of the city. So tons of office workers, professionals, people who are leaving their offices on foot, trying to make their way to the metro train, or going down into the garage and bringing their vehicles up onto the street. So a lot of traffic, a lot of crowds, a lot of chaos in there normally. In addition, you have all those other law enforcement entities that we talked about. And any one of those entities, Park Police, FBI, Homeland Security, could have units out in vehicles doing whatever businesses they have to do. Just patrolling, conducting investigations, in the case of Homeland Security folks, conducting maybe immigration activity. So it's a very dense, kind of charged area, both with civilians, with the people like cabinet members and people who would be going in and out of the White House doing business, and law enforcement. So that's why I think on our video now, you're seeing a lot of those different uniforms. Now, so add to this very confusing picture, the National Guard, who've been around in DC for a little while, so they're not quite as novel as they were in the first week or two. But these are folks who've basically been thrown into a pseudo law enforcement function, most of whom don't really have law enforcement backgrounds. And that adds, I think, a real wild card element to this thing. We don't really know how those folks would respond if confronted with a violent incident on the street with an armed person. So there's a lot of variability, I think, in the platform here, and so we'll have to just wait to see what more facts develop from the investigation.
Very important perspective there, as we're getting a new vantage point of the scene just about a block from the White House in Washington, D.C., where we've learned there's been a shooting. At least 2 National Guardsmen, according to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, have been shot. Police say that a suspect is currently in custody. Unclear at this point whether those guardsmen were actually targeted, whether they were responding to an already unfolding incident. Those details are being gathered as we speak, and we see a very large law enforcement presence there. We've seen ATF, U.S. Marshals, FBI, and obviously National Guard members.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.